Greetings, I'm Professor K, and in this short video presentation we're going to take a look at how we go about completing the Capture the Flag exercise for DC-1. In our first video we're going to be taking a look at how we go about doing discovery or intelligence gathering. And then we're going to take a look at enumeration. Now in the second video we'll get into actually finding an exploit and doing the actual attack onto the target. The download link for this target machine can be found up on Bowling Hub, or you can use the link inside of the lab file to access it directly. So the first thing I like to do is just discover my own IP address so there's no confusion. So I'm going to type in ifconfig, and you'll see that I'm using Ethernet 0, and on this Ethernet 0 adapter I have an IP address of 192.168.0.30 attached. That's the IP address for my Kali machine. Your IP address for your Kali is going to differ. So the next thing we have to do is figure out the IP address of our target. Now to do this I'm going to use netdiscover, and I'm going to use the following command: netdiscover space dash small letter I, which is for interface. Give it a space, and now I type in the name of that interface I want netdiscover to use. And after just a short moment it comes back and tells me the IP address of our target is going to be 192.168.0.29, and I know this because this is the name assigned to VirtualBox machines. Moving on with the next step of our scanning, we're going to use Nmap, and we're going to be looking for any vulnerable ports or open ports and services that might be running on the target. Let's go ahead and type in Nmap, the IP address of the target, followed by the following syntax: dash small letter V space dash capital P small letter N space dash small letter P dash. Nmap comes back very quickly, giving us the following 4 ports that have been discovered. So this bottom one has a port that randomly changes. It never remains the same. If I come back and do another Nmap scan, that'll be another port number. Alright, so let's say we got these 3 opportunities or potential targets up here, starting with 111, port 80, and port 22. As always, we're going to start off with the low-hanging fruit, so let's just open up a web browser and see what we get if we try to access port 80, which is always going to be a web server. So I've opened up a web browser and I've just typed in the IP address to the address bar. That's the IP address of our target, and it brings up this logon page for a CMS utility known as a Drupal. Now Drupal is a well-known CMS, but it's also well known to be very vulnerable. So the next thing we want to do is find out what version of Drupal is currently running on this web server. So let's go ahead and minimize our web browser, and let's go ahead and clear our terminal. And so at my terminal prompt I've typed in what web followed by the IP address of our target, and this should bring up all the technologies, that is to say the web technologies that are currently running on that remote target. Let's see what happens. So the results come back and we see that we're running Drupal version 7. Now we know that this is an earlier version, and we also know that it is vulnerable, but before we proceed on with trying to figure out exactly what version it is, let's go ahead and bring back up a web browser and let's take a look at the robots.txt file. Now there's usually a lot of good information in here, and the one thing that we're looking for is the changelog.txt, because this is what's going to give us the information about whether or not we have a good version, that is to say a vulnerable version of Drupal running on this target machine. So we see that there is a changelog.txt file, but unfortunately if we try to find it, we're going to discover that it's either been renamed or it's been deleted, which would be a normal security precaution, because this is where hackers would go to get information about the current version of Drupal that's running on the web server. So I'm just going to append the name of that file that I want to look at to the end of the, or to the front of the IP address of the web server. And it comes up and it says it can't find the changelog.txt because it does not exist on the server any longer. Let's go ahead and minimize our web browser. Let's get back on over to our terminal. Let's go ahead and clear. So what we can do now is we can look for a exploit for Dropple 7. So what we're going to do is we're going to use Searchsploit. Now Searchsploit is an offline database, or it uses the offline database that is available up at exploit-db.com. So we got all those exploits available to us locally on our Kali machine. So let's just go ahead and see if there's anything available. So I've typed in Searchsploit space Dropple space 7. Searchsploit comes back and it gives us some pretty good results. Now the one that we want to focus on is this one right here. That's the one that we're going to be using. Now this is going to allow us to use SQL injection to get into the CMS application itself, its database, and we're going to create an admin account that's going to allow us to log on to the Dropple using that logon page that we first got when we first visited the website. So let's go ahead and clear our screen, and let's bring up that command that we're going to be using to launch that Python script. So since this is a Python script, we're going to start this off with the Python command that is the executable to launch it. So it's Python space. Now this is just the path to where that Python script is located. This takes us right through it. Now we could browse to this just by going up here through File Explorer, and we could just open up the USR folder, the share folder, the exploit DB, go into the exploits folder, go into the PhD folder, go into the web app folder, and we would find this Python script waiting for us. Alright, so we're going to follow that up with a -u, which means what is the name of the user you want this script to create. We're going to call it Cyber Offense. Give it a space, a -p, which stands for what's the password you want this user to use. We've typed in the password. It's password123 exclamation point. So the -t, pretty simple. It just stands for what's the IP address of the target. Now once we have everything configured correctly, we're just going to go ahead and hit enter. And it comes back and it lets us know that the attack was successful and we were able to create a new user called Cyber Offense with the following password. So that's going to conclude part 1 of this video series on how we go about completing the CTF for DC-1. Now in our next short video we're going to see how we go about gaining that access by using this user account and password that we created, and then we're going to see how we go about continuing on with exploiting that CMS Dropple on that remote target. I'll see you in the next video.